Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're taking a look at Wave 3 for Unlock. Now these are really called Secret Adventures, but it's Wave 3.
Wave 3.
So when we reviewed the last two waves, so to speak, we did our best to be extremely spoiler-free, or at least as spoiler-free as we could. I'm going to kind of warn you that in this one, probably will be our spoilery-ist version. So first of all, what you're seeing here on the table, this is what happens right when you open it up. That might already be a spoiler for you. So I guess I apologize.
Whoops.
But it's going to be hard for us to talk about these ones specifically without getting into what might be considered spoiler territory. So there is your warning. Not a full spoiler, but...
So if you haven't played any of the unlocks before, you should definitely go back and play the other waves beforehand. But Unlock is a escape room in a box where you'll be using cards to, they'll have like locations on them, they'll have numbers that you add together. There's an app that goes with it that you put all the combinations into for like locks and things. And then there's like, as these waves have gone, the puzzles and the way you interact with the app has actually like expanded and got a little more in depth.
So the first thing that I didn't really realize about these is these are the least escape roomy of the bunch. They're more about like trying to, they're not the mystery adventures, but I felt almost like they were, where they each had like a information we were trying to find, rather than like we're just trying to find the clues to get out of wherever we're trapped.
They're called Secret Adventures, but I feel like their working title was Story Adventures, and, you know, some PR person was like, that's probably not going to go over well, that might be confusing or whatever, because so much of these were story-based. Now, granted, in the other two waves, there were still things, there were still, like, thematics thrown into the puzzles. There were still, you're here, you need this amount of time because of this reason. There were a lot of story elements. Here, it felt like the story was the main thing. There were a lot of times where it felt like if you're not following the story, you're not going to get it.
Yep.
Or in Wizard of Oz, if you don't know what the story is, there are things that you're not going to get, because there were a couple things that you kind of had to know, and that they're really obvious. If you've seen any of the movies, you're probably going to get it. But if you've never seen any of the movies or read the books or anything, then there's going to be some clues you're like, I don't understand what's supposed to happen here.
So aside from...
You looked at the camera like... you pulled the
You
gym.
totally gymmed it.
So aside from like having to have seen The Wizard of Oz, I think that the No Side Story has the most like backstory that they've like built themselves, because this is a sequel. It should be called the Squeakquel.
Yeah.
What?
Oh.
To the one of the unlocks from the first wave. The
I'm not going to remember what it's called now.
It's No Side something.
No Side.
No.
No Side, just a character in it.
Yeah.
It's right out there.
We could go look.
But it's
I'm going to go look.
the sequel to that.
It's Squeak and Sausage. It's
Yeah.
the Squeakquel, Squeak and Sausage.
Yeah, see, look, and he's there. And
If you put the boxes together,
No,
nothing
it
happens.
Yeah.
Nothing
but it's the
happens.
same guy. So
It is.
you kind of have this like invested, like if you've played this one from Wave 1, you kind of have this like backstory and like, you know, things you'll see going on here. Like, I mean, it's not like if you watch a TV show, you're not that emotionally invested, but you kind of have this little bit extra going into it.
And I don't think there were any clues from the first ones. Like, it's not like if you haven't played the first one, you can't play this one.
Yeah. Nor do I feel like playing the first one really gave you much of an advantage
No.
on this one.
It's
at
just
all.
thematically, it's fun to feel like, we're
we're
back
back.
at it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Now, I do think that this one was my favorite also. Mainly but that's not saying that much, because I do think this wave was probably my least favorite wave. And probably because of the reasons we were talking about earlier. The fact that it's so story-based. Like, the first one was just escape adventures. Just straight up, yes, you're locked in a room, you gotta get out. Okay, cool. Next one were mystery adventures, where it still felt like you're locked in a room, you gotta get out. But they added a little bit more theme there. Okay, fine. And here, it was just reading stories. It just felt a lot of reading stories. And, like, we would only get stumped, like... There were only a couple of times when we would get stumped and we couldn't solve a puzzle, but like that was it. It in the other two waves, it felt more like they were like this puzzle took a few minutes to get, and this puzzle took a few minutes to get. Like the average was better, and here it was like got it, got it, got it, got it. Spend 10 minutes on this one. Got it, got it, got it. You know what I mean?
And I will say that, and not all of them, so don't just think that you should do this, but there were times we were sitting here just like, none of these go together. We have a red card and a blue card, and we know those don't go together, and the rest of them are just gray cards of information. What are we doing? And after a few minutes, the app would be like, oh, this happens now. And we're like, oh. So there literally was nothing to do. It was just sit and wait for when the app decided we've gone on long enough that it would give us the information we needed to move forward. And that was probably my least favorite thing, is that all of these, this one the most, but a little bit of this one, and I don't remember if that one did or not, had things where the app controlled it. There was nothing we could do until the app let us, or the app decided, a timer went off to where we could then move on to
As
the next
we
thing.
know, there could have been something we could have done. Like, we can't, like, go back and replay it now, because in hindsight, we know all, like, the solutions. But there might have been, like, just a tiny clue that we missed or something that could have keyed something.
Yeah,
but
I see that there probably is at least one time that I know Wes is talking about where I don't think what you're saying would have. There may have been other times when that would be accurate, but and also when we were playing it in a very loud area. So when I noticed that at first that was a thing, I was like, oh, I'm so worried that we're gonna miss others.
Yeah, and
later on.
especially in the mystery adventure, there were things where like there'd be sound bites that you have to listen to and find a clue in that sound bite. And we were like, if these have that, I was also really disappointed in the bullet tokens. I was really excited when I saw these. I had hopes up. I put money down on what I thought would happen, and I lost that money. And I did not. I don't know. I was kind of let down by these. But maybe you won't be. Maybe you'll think it's super awesome because it's not. It was original and it was unexpected.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
I will agree with Wes. When I saw what the bullet tokens were used for was when I feel like I checked out of this wave. We played this one. I liked it. I was like, I like it, but it was very story based. That was weird.
Mm.
And then we were playing this one. I'm like, this is really story based. And then when I saw what the bullet tokens are for, I'm like, oh, I bet you they're all story based. And we played this one, and I was like,
This was the
Yep.
most story based because it has the map that you just pull out of the box when you first get it, and you just kind of work your way through the
The
map.
Yellow Brick Road. You follow the Yellow Brick
And
Road.
almost there were things that weren't puzzles, like the parts where you each have your character cards and how those interact with each other.
It's a storytelling thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was way more about just like telling a story than figuring out puzzles. And also, how many characters? 1, 2, 3.
Only play the game with four
Four
players.
people.
Don't play with 5.
Don't play this with any more or less than 4 players. That I don't want to get into it more because that could get into spoiler territory.
it's already a lot of spoiler territory.
But-
let's be honest.
But don't do it.
So I think I'm going to be the odd one out here and say that The Wizard of Oz was actually my favorite one of
Really?
this series.
Loser.
Just because it felt so familiar. Like, I think because
It's a movie?
yeah, well, it's a movie, it's a play, it's all that stuff. I think so. When you start the game, you get 90 minutes, which is the runtime of the movie. I think so. I think if you play the movie in the background, it'll probably link up with things, kind of like when you play like soundtracks backwards to it and stuff. Just try it. Like, it would be fun.
You talking about when you played the Dark Moon?
Yeah.
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. It's
Yeah.
supposed to line up. I tried it and I didn't think it did, but whatever.
Because I had information from the movie and stuff, there were things in there that were so like lined up with it that it took that. It was ranked as a level 3. It felt like a level 1. Like, some of the puzzles weren't that hard. There were a couple that I was like, once we figured out, I was like, that's interesting. Like, that was a cool take on it. But like you guys have already said, all of this whole series is mostly storytelling, and it's very like linear path. Like, there isn't like a bunch of splits you go on. You kind of just continue down this one path. And I think that's kind of how all these play out. The train one is kind of my least favorite if I have to pick a least from this one, and then I'd say this is kind of like almost tied with Wizard of Oz. If you don't like Wizard of Oz, then this will be your favorite one.
I almost wonder if this was ranked a 3 because the few things where if you don't have information from the movie, like if you haven't seen the movie ever, or you don't know anything about it, or you don't know what a TV is, like there are going to be some things you're like you may never get, or you may have to use all your hints to let them like make it really clear, because there were things like doesn't work. I'm like, oh, but in the movie this happens, and that's how we solved it. So maybe that's why this is a 3. But if you have that information, then
But I guess I see what how do you rank that?
Yeah.
You have to rank it based off of the hardest whatever. But maybe I said it already. I don't know, but I do think this was probably my least favorite wave. I liked the first one. The second one was also pretty good. I think I might still like the first wave better, but it's hard because there's 3 in each one. And I agree that this was my favorite. Second favorite, least favorite, mainly just because in here, like at least the storytelling aspects, and maybe it was just because we played it first, so I didn't realize that like it was like clicking, like ooh story, ooh that makes sense with that, ooh okay that's cool and different.
And those two
You
we
know?
played in a con setting. This was
Yeah, it was really-
a house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That could slightly affect it.
All those could affect it, but I think regardless of any of those factors, it still was just kind of disappointing to me because I liked the other 2 waves, the first 6, so much. This was just kind of like a swing and a miss. Like it was something new, sure, and I bet you that's good for other people. Like they tried it, and I bet you it hits home for some people. But for me, I was just kind of like, oh, my expectations weren't met. And sometimes, subverting expectations is cool, but it felt like my expectations weren't met. Not like, ooh, something different, like, ooh, not what I wanted. Make sense?
I think Tom kind of hit it on the head there for me, that they tried something new with this. And I applaud them for that. I applaud them for not just
Kudos.
going, let's just crank out more of the same. It's selling. Let's just give them more escape rooms with a different theme and slightly different puzzles. But that's what I was expecting. And so I think that if I knew these weren't escape rooms, because they're not, like that one a little bit, but these really are not escape rooms, they're stories, which we've said like 6 times now. I think that if I really grasped that information ahead of time, I would have liked them more, because I was expecting one thing and I got, if you're expecting ice cream and you get yogurt, you're going to be like, what is this? I like yogurt. Yogurt's great, but not if I'm expecting ice cream. I do think these are going to be kind of a niche group. I think there's going to be some people that like these story games better than the escape room games. I just think that what we're looking for is not what's on this table. Regardless, if this is something you want, and or if you're like us and you're just going to play all the unlock games no matter what they are, because you think that at the end of the day, they're still unlock games and we still had fun with them.
That's true.
We're going to have purchase links in the description box down below where you can get all 3 of these.
And while you're down there, click on that subscribe button, and you'll never be bored. Oh, that one didn't go very far.
Wave 3. There's 3 of us.
3 of us, and it's
Yeah,
a wave.
that was my Aaron joke for the night.
All right.
Yes.